Here are some of the biggest things I've learned this year. Welcome back to another video. Switching it up this week from the vlogs because it is the last Sunday before the new year. This year, honestly, all of it flew by, and I like doing these wrap-up videos just to put a nice bow before going into the new year because so much happened, and I think it's so important to reflect. This week's video, I am going to talk about the 3 main things that happened in my life this year, which were changing careers, moving to a new city, and getting into the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. I'm going to be sharing a ton of rapid fire things that I learned on TikTok. So if you want to see even more of what I learned, then you could definitely check that out. Before I start, I saw this really good quote. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. I don't know if you've been seeing the trend on TikTok where it's a photo carousel. The first photo is like, oh, I feel like I didn't accomplish much this year. And then the next carousel is like all the things that they did. One, I love that trend because it's people celebrating their wins. But on the other side, I can also see if for somebody who maybe nothing really happened or it was a slow year for them, this quote is just a nice reminder that everybody is on a different path. And I felt like last year was pretty chill for me, and this year a lot happened. So I think life comes and goes in waves. So if this was not a massive year of stuff that happened, that doesn't change or say anything less about you. Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe. The start of the year was definitely centered around wanting to change my career. It's raining outside, so that's the ambiance you hear in the background. I think to understand the full journey, I have to start at the beginning. So rewind back to high school, and I was a junior applying to colleges. Had kind of assumed that what I chose then would be what I did for the rest of my life, which is a crazy concept because me at the ripe age of 17 is gonna make a life-altering decision. Sure, let's do more of that. Just kind of the norm. At least where I went to school, you did all these AP classes, you took all these tests, you got into a good college, you got a degree, and then you got a job that you did for the rest of your life. That was the trajectory that I understood. Lucky for me, I took a psychology class my senior year. I absolutely loved it, and that was good enough for me because that was my major going into college, and I also got my master's degree in it. So you can imagine my surprise when after 6 years studying this field, I was no longer passionate about it. I go back and forth about what signs I noticed, or was there something I could have done before. I tried to stop asking myself that because it's not helpful since it already happened, but I don't know. Sometimes when your mind goes there, it's just, you gotta let it happen. I think there were signs because when I have thought back on it, my sophomore year, I took a marketing class and I absolutely loved it, but I was still under the same assumption that I couldn't change my major because I didn't know what people were gonna say. Would I be behind? Would I graduate on time? And I was so determined to stick with the status quo that I just stayed the same path that I was going. And I wouldn't change it because who knows where I would have ended up now. After I graduated with my master's, which I have stopped blaming myself for, and I have a master's degree. Nobody can ever take that away from me. And just because it's not something that I am doing now does not take away from any of that hard work, dedication, and degree. I say that mainly for myself. I wasn't trying to like come at you. Especially when I was in grad school, I loved the field of counseling. I was really good at it. And I think because of that, I assumed it was what I was supposed to be doing. Especially in my last year, I knew I needed a creative outlet, which is how I started on TikTok. In the mornings before I got started with my day, I would do the get ready with me videos. I would do mini vlogs. I would just chat. I would love the editing. I would love posting, and it felt authentic. It felt me. It didn't feel like work. I was so drawn to it. And then I graduated, and then I was at a private practice, and I loved all of the patients that I had, but I dreaded going in every day. Map out how long I had to be there, and if it was less than a few hours, I loved it. I loved my clients. I had a great supervisor. I really liked the people that I worked with, but I just didn't feel connected to anything that I was doing. And that was something that I really struggled with at the end of 2023 going into 2024, because I had just graduated, just got my license. I was going on all of these interviews. It wasn't until the beginning of this year that I really knew I wanted to change. That was difficult because the job market game had changed. Before, it was fairly easy to transfer the skills of one position into the field for another. For me, I really wanted to transition into marketing. I fondly look back on the class that I took sophomore year of college, and that was the starting point for my learning. I was at the library reading books, taking notes, learning as much as I could. I was applying to stuff, not really hearing back, and I just felt so frustrated. I think I was also carrying a lot of internal guilt for changing my mind and not pursuing something that I went to school for. There's a quote that I love that says, to solve a problem, be hard on the problem and soft on the person. That was the catalyst for letting go of any negativity that I was carrying. I was applying to stuff for a few months, and it wasn't until March that a girl that I went to high school with, who was in my sister's grade, her company, they posted something about looking for an editorial and content intern type. Submitted, I applied, I had an interview, and I got it. Morphed into more than an intern position. Now I love marketing, but I definitely want to move more into the editorial space where it's print and digital and writing, and it's all combined into one, because that is what I'm passionate about. And I can see the way that I talk about it now is I feel connected to it, and I think that's something that was missing for counseling. I still look back on counseling with such fondness. It taught me a lot about myself, interacting with people. My interpersonal skills are through the roof. And I still have my degree. Not that I would ever get rid of that. If you've been wanting to change or pivot in some way, I think you've just got to back yourself 100%. I think be patient, especially in this job market. It is so tough. You have to have like a portfolio, writing samples. You have to know a gazillion people. You have to intern at NASA. It is all of these hurdles. And as somebody that went through it, it can feel discouraging, infuriating. I know I shed a lot of tears at our dining room table. Looking at it now, I'm like, wait, how did that happen? And then I look back and I see the person who believed in themselves so much that they got up every morning. They were learning as much as they could. They were reaching out to people. They were emailing, they were learning, they were applying. And like, it's a series of all those seemingly small steps that resulted into this. That is what I've learned from changing my careers, and it's also showed me I can do it. Like, there's nothing that I cannot do that I set my mind to. Honestly, reminds me of another quote, which is, be impatient with action, but patient with results. I know I'm guilty of this. I will do something for a few times and then expect it to take off, when in reality, some of the biggest things are made through small, consistent, everyday habits. A good reminder to stick with something that you're really passionate about. Pretty much almost done with my skincare, and I've only gone through one thing. So let's go to moving to a new city. By far, the biggest takeaway is it is so important to move out of your hometown. I got a glimpse of this in 2019 when I studied abroad. Absolute game changer. Just the level of independence, not having to answer to somebody, being able to go out and explore. I also learned a lot about myself. I'll never forget when I studied abroad and I got tonsillitis for the first time. I just was down bad in every sense of the word. To figure out their hospital system, because they don't call it a hospital, they call it A&E, which I think is accident and emergency. And it taught me a lot. I went on my first solo trip over there. I went to Ireland by myself. I planned the whole trip, and it just is another reminder of one, I can do literally anything I set my mind to. Oops. Ever since I got back from that trip, I talk about it still to this day, clearly, but it was just my first taste of independence and self-discovery, and I didn't realize how much I was craving that again until I moved. Kind of funny in and of itself because I did not think I would like the city. From New Jersey, very small suburban town, we would go into the city every now and then, but the times that we did, it just felt so overstimulating, overwhelming. I would feel exhausted by the time I got back and just didn't feel like my kind of place. I wanted to move out at some point, and it kind of just all lined up kind of nicely, actually. Work started picking up and the office was located in the city. I was originally hired to just be remote, and then they wanted me to start coming in more, start being a part of the team. So I was going in a lot more for work. I met my boyfriend who also lived in the city, so I was going in a lot to see him. And my dad had always wanted to live in Florida. He's fully remote and his lease was ending in October, so he thought that would be the perfect time to do it. And I felt like that was kind of life's push of being like, this is your time. I think you just have to just do it. Do it scared, do it shy, do it fearful, just do it. When I thought back to all of the hard things that I've gone through, not once did I not ever figure it out. And this is my first real time like being fully on my own, and I'm nervous about a new change of environment. The rent is expensive in the city, so I was thinking about that a lot. I was gonna be living with my boyfriend, who I love dearly, but I was also nervous about because this was my first time living with a significant other. All of those thoughts were still swirling through my head on the day that we moved in. I was nervous, I was a little bit anxious. I loved suburban life, so I was nervous how I would adjust to the city. So we moved into our apartment August 31st, and I am just now starting to really appreciate the city. Definitely did not happen overnight. It came with a lot of trials and tribulations, different experiences, and I realized what really helped me was not trying to make the city what it was for everybody else. Right after we moved, I followed a lot of New York City pages, and a lot of it would be going out or doing these crazy things, which is not what I like to do. For the first few months or so, I would try and make that happen, or try and do things that they just weren't me. Stopped playing into the hustle and bustle, and I just developed a routine for myself. Also know that when you visit a place, it's going to be so different to when you live there. I've seen videos of people visiting New York and after one visit are like, oh my gosh, I want to live here. I love the city. I don't know where my mascara went, but I think to really love a place and see if it's the right fit for you, you have to give it time. I'd say at least a few months, but I know that leases are a thing, so maybe more like a year, unless you Airbnb it or something. I think the radiator went on outside, so hopefully you can still hear it. But last major experience was getting into a healthy relationship. This time last year, I was pretty much over the dating scene. Just felt like you had to play all these different games. Nobody was being upfront. You had to be interested, but not too much. You had to be available, but not too available. I also had a string of experiences where I felt I gave my all, I put my heart out there, and it was just never received. I am in the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. I feel so loved, cherished. You will never be too much for the person that you're meant to be with. I learned a lot about myself too. Friends could tell you when I get upset, I used to pigeonhole my emotions and just like shut down. And to be in a relationship that prioritizes communication, and when I'm upset, he doesn't let me pigeonhole. He's like, no, we are gonna talk about this. And I've honestly learned how to communicate even when I'm upset or even when I am angry. More than anything, I have a teammate and a best friend in life. Honestly, it makes me grateful to myself that I did not stay in things I knew I was not meant to be in. Not to be that it happens when you least expect it, because I hated hearing that when I was single. What I can say is to take it at your own pace. Felt like I had to be on the apps because everybody my age was, and I felt like I had to use it all the time because the algorithm and all that other stuff. I did not do any of that. I used it at my own pace, and offline I started looking for examples in real life to contradict what I had been feeling. When you go through even one experience that does not work out the way you want to, it kind of tarnishes your view of love, especially when you thought that was the person that it was going to work out with. I had kind of found myself in that rut of, I feel like I keep putting myself out there and just nothing is turning up. I just feel like I am meant to be alone. That was really harsh for me to think. I started looking for examples in everyday life. Maybe it was friends laughing, maybe it was a hug, maybe it was a couple enjoying a romantic evening. I started looking for examples that love existed. Somebody that is a hopeless romantic like myself, I knew it, I've seen it, I've craved it, I wanted it for myself, but at that stage I just felt like it wasn't gonna happen. I think it was a combination of believing that it was actually gonna work out for me and taking things at my own pace that kind of changed my perspective a little bit. I am truly insanely happy and I feel so incredibly grateful. I think everybody deserves this feeling. So this is your reminder not to settle. Those are the biggest things that have transpired in 2024. I want to end this video with a little blurb that I saw on Pinterest. This was the year I didn't see coming, the one that shook me out of complacency. When I learned to stop being compliant, to demand what was rightfully mine, refused to settle for anything less than what I deserved. I lost patience with small talk, fell in love with midnight conversations. I crossed deserts and oceans with the man I love at my side as we lived out of suitcases, drunk on life and laughter. This was the year that came with a gentle tap on the shoulder, reminding me of who I was and what I could be if only I'd just open my arms and let the light in, stop overthinking and start living. Give myself permission to fall as long as I got back up again. I held the ones I love closer, let go of the things that weren't meant to be mine, looked my past dead in the eye and said, "You aren't welcome here anymore." Chased away the cobwebs that I had let linger far too long, told the moon I was sorry. This is now my time in the sun. Isn't that so good? It's by Lang Leave. I read that poem and it just perfectly encompassed every single thing that I felt this year. This year truly set the groundwork that I can, one, do hard things, and true, also reminding myself that there are so many things that I want to do in life and so many passions that I have, and there's no reason that I can't do them. And I think this year was kind of the kick in the ass I needed to be like, let's go, let's get a move on. You have all these dreams and goals, let's act on them. This year really set the foundation where I learned a lot about myself, gained a lot of confidence, and led with love at the heart of it all. So I think in this next year of 2025, I am just gonna amplify it. That's it from me. I would love to know some of your takeaways from this year. I hope whenever you're watching this, you have a great morning, evening, afternoon, or night. But most of all, I hope that you're doing well. Don't forget to like and subscribe because the YouTube videos are not stopping in 2025. I think that is everything from me. I'll see you when I see ya in 2025. Have a good new year, guys.